God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a sixth-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And I am here breaking down the Karen Read case. Now, I have had a number of people ask if I would be willing to analyze the Miss Kelly Devers testimony. And of course, that is an easy one. So I'm happy to do it. It's quick. It is not a long testimony. And it is very, very transparent from a psychological perspective what is happening here. So I am thrilled to share it with you. All right. Now, before we start the testimony, I do want to say a few things about Miss Devers. She's coming in with the intention and the very clear intention of being obstructionist. She does not want to be cooperative. But as we go through this, try not to get too sidetracked by the attitude. Instead, watch her face very carefully. Really pay attention to what her face is doing. And if you're somebody like I usually am when I'm watching YouTube, oftentimes I'm not watching, I'm listening, I would encourage you to come to the screen and look at her face if you're going to watch this, because you have to see her to understand her. She does not, she should never play poker. Let me put it that way. She's got a lot of tells. And with that, let's begin.
Good morning. Could you state your name and spell your last name for the jurors, please?
Kelly Dever, last name D-E-V-E-R.
And what do you do for a living? President?
I'm a police officer.
Where are you employed?
Boston Police.
How long have you been so employed with the Boston Police Department?
2 years and a little over 2 months.
Where'd you work before that?
I worked for the Canton Police.
Were you a sworn officer at that time?
At what time? When I was employed there?
When you were employed by the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I was.
As a sworn police officer?
Yes.
Okay. What was your duty assignment in January of 2022?
I was a patrol officer.
You're familiar with the case that's presently before the bench, correct?
In some capacity, yes.
Commonwealth versus Karen Read.
All right. So, right off the bat, she's right to the point. She's jumpy. She's quick to answers. But the way she answered this question, are you familiar with this case? Her first knee-jerk response was to just shake her head and say yes. But then she thinks about it, and then she makes this like snotty face. Because she has an ulterior motive that she continues to have to remember to bring forward throughout her testimony. And hopefully you know what I mean, and if you don't, just keep watching and we'll get to it. So her knee jerk was just to answer honestly, yes. But then she remembers, wait a minute, I have a job to do today on the stand, and that's to be obstructionist. And that's when she gives the like snide face.
Did you ever prepare any kind of report based on any of your conduct or your connection with this case, if there was any connection with this case, while you were a Canton police officer?
No.
Were you ever interviewed by any member of the Canton Police Department in furtherance of their investigation related to the death of John O'Keefe?
No.
Were you ever interviewed by the Mass?
Okay, did you see that? So that was also very intentional. The first time, did you ever write a report? No. That was it. Then the second time, she slows down a little bit and remembers she has to give the snotty answer. So then she gives the snotty no, right? The snotty no. And let's see what she does the third time.
Massachusetts State Police.
No.
Let me finish the question. I got to finish the question, then you can answer it. It works a little better that way. Were you ever interviewed by any member of the Massachusetts
Okay. Now look at her face, because she gave the snotty comment. She was reprimanded by Alan Jackson, which was for her a reminder of where she is. He just reminded her, I've got to do it this way, right? Like, he wasn't just saying that because he was trying to reprimand her. He's saying there's procedure. We're in a courtroom. I've got to lay a foundation. You just need to let me ask the questions and then answer them. And then it kind of spooks her. It's like she remembers where she is. She gets a little scared. And of course, she's very nervous. That's part of why she's so jumpy. She's very nervous. But it's interesting because the default mood or emotion that we're getting from her is not anger, which you would think it would be, right? If my natural inclination here was to be angry and incensed that I'm being called to testify here, then my natural inclination, the emotion that would be on default when I'm waiting to answer questions, would be anger. But that is not the emotion that we get from Ms. Devers. We get fear. Watch carefully.
State police in furtherance of their investigation into the death of John O'Keefe?
No.
Were you ever interviewed by either the Canton Police Department or the Massachusetts State Police with regard to any of your observations on January 28th or January 29th, 2022?
No.
And you never wrote a report about your observations or any observations that you had on January 28th or January 29th, 2022, correct?
No.
Okay. So she's sitting there and she's spinning, right? And you can see she's going through an array of emotions as she's sitting there waiting to answer this question. Most of them were fear. Like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And then she remembers to put on the smirky face. Like, no, right? Remember, she has a very real reason to act the way that she is. And I hope it's clear already, but if not, we'll get to it.
That was a double negative. Let me try that a different way. Did you ever write a report about your observations related to January 28th, 2022, January 29th, 2022?
No.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, the first time you were ever interviewed in connection with anything having to do with this case or this investigation related to the death of John O'Keefe was by a separate law enforcement agency, not the Massachusetts State Police, not the Canton Police Department, correct?
Yes.
That was in August of 2023, is that right?
Yes.
Do you remember the exact date?
No.
August 9th, 2023, does that sound right? About right?
I know it was the summer of 2023,
Okay.
so...
Do you think it...
Okay, look at that face. She is scared. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be asked these questions. She understands the position that she's in. She understands that she is a Boston police officer. I imagine it wasn't easy to become a Boston police officer. She understands that she's in the town of Dedham. She understands that everybody in Norfolk County right now is watching this testimony. She also understands that people outside of Norfolk County are watching this testimony. And most importantly, she understands that the commissioner of the Boston Police Department and all of her colleagues from Canton and Boston are watching her testify right now, and it is scaring the crap out of her to be called on to testify about what she said to the FBI. It is terrifying. Let's see why.
Refresh your recollection to take a look at a report of that interview?
Yes, because I've never seen it before.
Just insofar as the date is concerned, may I approach?
Yes.
So why did she say that? Look at her face. She's scared to death. Why did she say, yes, because I've never seen it before? Why did she say that? Because again, remember, this is not an angry face. Now, if you've seen any of my videos, you've probably seen what an angry face looks like, because sometimes I can be really angry. Right? It's not a pretty face, but it's a very clear look, like it's anger. Miss Devers is not angry. She is terrified. She's scared to death. Look at the face that she's making. She's scared to death. She's like, please get me out of here. Please do not do this. Why are you making me do this? That's what's going on for her. And so these comments, these ways that she tries to be obstructionist and difficult, they are self-preservation. All of her bratty comments are self-preservation.
Thank you. Take a look at the bottom of that page. Just glance at that and tell me once you familiarize yourself with that face page of that report. Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have that date in mind?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that it was August 9th, 2023?
Yes.
Okay. I want to direct your attention, Officer Dever, to January 28th, 2022. Where were you working? What was your duty assignment on that day, January 28th, moving into January 29th?
Well, 3.5 years later, I remember I was on patrol. I don't remember anything further about this night.
Did you?
Okay. So imagine that you get subpoenaed to testify. You're trying to do everything you can to stop it, but at the end of the day, you wind up having to come into court to actually do this. She's been prepared. She's prepared herself. She's practiced. She's rehearsed. So she's got several rehearsed statements. Okay. And one of them we just heard. So let's see if we can't hear it one more time very quickly. Okay. This is the rehearsed statement to, do you remember what you were doing or what your assignment was on January 28th going into January 29th, 2022?
On that day, January 28th, moving into January 29th.
Well, 3.5 years later, I remember I was on patrol. I don't remember anything further about this night.
Did you work?
Okay. So interesting. I don't remember anything further about this night. She's talking about it like it's happening in the present, right? So she didn't say, I don't remember anything further about that night. She said, I don't remember anything further about this night. And that is interesting. She also remembered to hit the 3.5 years later mark. That was on the rehearsed statement list. She was supposed to bring that up as though because it was 3.5 years later, why would she remember what happened on one night in the middle of January of 2022, right? Geez, I don't know. Maybe because it was the night that John O'Keefe was found dead on Brian Albert's lawn. Just a thought. Maybe that's why, but not for Miss Devers.
Overnight, like a late shift going into the morning of January 29th.
That was my assigned shift, so yes.
Okay. Who else was working with you on that particular day, if you recall?
Sergeant Good, Officer Mullaney, Officer Seraph, and Officer Pasquarelli.
And what generally was your assignment when you went into work that night on January 28th?
Patrol.
At some point, either that evening in the early morning hours of January 29th, did you note that a call came in related to a person found in the snow, unresponsive in the snow?
Yes.
Okay. So it's interesting. When she just listens to the question and answers it, she calms down for a second. But then as soon as there's like this dead air, she kind of starts reeling, and you can see her just start spinning. She starts spinning. You can tell that she's very jumpy, that she keeps kind of sighing or breathing heavy. Her heart is definitely beating really fast. And you can see that her face turns almost like instantaneously into panic. This is somebody who is panicked. So ask yourself, why? Why is this person panicked? What does she have to worry about? She's not on trial. She has nothing to do with this case, right? Why is she so afraid?
About that, the nature of the call, and where were you?
I was in my cruiser. a call came in that said person in a snowbank, something along those lines. Immediately followed by that transmission, my sergeant requested that I come to take over dispatch.
Is that Sergeant Good?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, in fact, respond back to Canton PD to take over dispatch?
Yes, so I was already in the parking lot of the Canton Police while this took place, so I was already at the station.
Did you know whether or not Sergeant Good and or any of the others responded to the location while you stayed back to handle dispatch at the police department?
Yes, that's why I went inside so he could respond.
Were you aware that Sergeant Good, did you have any knowledge at that time that Sergeant Good was familiar with or knew who Brian Albert was?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you know who Brian Albert was at
No.
that time?
No.
Do you now? At least
Because of
familiar
this
with the
case,
name?
yes.
I spoke over you, I'm so sorry. Based on this case, are you familiar with the name?
The name, yes.
Did you know Kevin Albert?
No. Oh, the detective Kevin Albert. Yes, I did.
Correct.
Okay. Really interesting there. So again, we see this is the same pattern that we saw a little while ago, where she knows that she's supposed to be obstructionist. That's the intention that she's bringing in. I am supposed to act like an obstructionist, bratty jerk, basically, to give you the PG version. But authentically, right? When she realizes that it's okay to answer a question, or when she forgets what she's supposed to be doing, she answers fine. And she realizes, oh yeah, no, wait, I know Kevin. Yeah, of course. Like, I worked with Kevin at the Canton Police Department. He's a detective, right? So her first instinct was to try to remember what the intent is and to deny, right? Deflect, deny. But then she's like, wait, no, I know him. And then has like a really genuine response. Like, yeah, no, I know him. Yeah.
Did you know Kevin Albert?
He was a detective for the Canton Police?
Were you aware of his relationship to Brian Albert at that time?
No.
Are you now aware of his relationship with Brian Albert?
Yes, from the media.
And what is that relationship?
All right. So here's another one of the rehearsed statements. Yes, from the media. Right. I'm sure that's all the reason why. It's the only reason why she knows. It has nothing to do with the fact that like Sarah Levinson is like one of her best friends. Has nothing to do with the fact that she's grown up in Canton, Massachusetts, or that she's worked for both the Canton PD and the Boston Police Department. No. She only knows that Kevin Albert is related to Brian Albert because of the media. Of course, Miss Devers, right? But it's her rehearsed statement, so it's what she gives us, the rehearsed statement.
Did you know Brian Higgins at that time?
Yes, in passing.
Yes, in passing. She's trying to distance herself here. That's what she's trying to do. She's trying to put distance between herself and this night and this case. So yeah, in passing, even though I saw him every day because he had an office at the Canton PD. Yeah, I mean, he was there every day, but like, yeah, she's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But I'm trying to keep my objective hat on just to help others understand why she's being ridiculous, because it is very deliberate in some sense.
I'm not asking if you were social friends, asking if you knew who he was.
Yes.
How'd you know who Brian Higgins was?
He had an office in the Canton Police.
Was he a sworn police officer?
Not for us.
Was he a sworn federal agent?
Yes.
Worked for ATF?
Yes.
Okay. How long had you known and been familiar with Brian Higgins? Say, for instance, by sight, to be able to recognize who he was.
Sometime during 2020 is when I was probably first familiarized with him, because that's when I was employed with the Canton Police Department first.
Okay.
All right. So that was an authentic, genuine answer. That was the answer to the question. And you can see it was a pretty straightforward answer. Sometime in 2020, because that's when I first got hired on to work with Canton PD.
Pass him in the hallways, hi, bye, things like that.
Yes.
Sustained as to form, Mr. Jackson.
Understood. Did you know him by sight?
Yes.
Could you recognize him if you saw him?
2.5 years later, no, but at the time, yes.
I'm not asking.
2.5 years later, like it was 75 years later, right? Like, that was a pretty stupid thing to say. I'm pretty sure that if she could take that one back, she would. But again, She said it because she's trying to put distance between her and this case and between her and Brian Higgins. Now that she's had a few days to sit with this, I'm pretty sure she wishes that she answered that one differently because it was a ridiculous thing to say and probably one she'll never live down. But I understand why she did it. Again, she's trying to distance herself from this case.
Asking you about right now, I'm asking you back in January 2022. Could you recognize him by sight?
Yes.
Did you know who Kenneth Berkowitz was?
Yes.
Who's Kenneth Berkowitz?
He was the chief of the Canton Police.
Obviously very familiar with him. He was your boss, correct?
Yes.
When Sergeant Good instructed you to take over dispatch, explain what that meant.
It meant I walked inside and I sat down in a dispatch room.
Describe the dispatch room. What did that array look like?
There was chairs and computers.
Monitors?
Yes.
Does the dispatch area also have monitors of internal security camera footage?
Okay, so why did she do that? What was that about? Right? I mean, she just does come across like a bratty teenager. It's horrible. I wish somebody had coached her on that. Because I'm feeling bad for her the more I see this. I mean, she's just destroyed herself here. But, you know, she knows now that the questions that she doesn't want to answer are coming, and she's trying to figure out a way to be difficult and obstructionist so that she doesn't have to answer them to the best of her ability. And she doesn't want to be in this situation, and she's trying to communicate to Alan Jackson and to all of us, and more importantly, to the Boston Police Commissioner, that she doesn't want to testify. She doesn't want to also, perjure herself. So she's in a tough position.
I know there was camera screens, but I don't know if they were on TVs or computers or where in dispatch they were. I don't recollect where they were or how they would be accessed. They were in the room somewhere. I can't be more specific. I don't remember.
But you do recall seeing that there were monitors that were showing different views of internal security camera footage of Canton PD, correct?
The specifics, no. Were there? Yes.
I don't know what you mean by specifics. I'm asking you, were there monitors that you could look at that showed security camera footage from inside Canton PD, different areas, hallways, corridors, offices, the Sallyport, for instance?
So, 2.5 years since
She's trying to put distance between herself and what she's about to say. That's what she's trying to do. She's trying to say, I don't remember, because if she doesn't remember, then she can't be held responsible for whatever she saw, because she didn't remember.
Keep saying 2.5 years later.
So let her finish her answer and then ask a question.
Sure.
It's been years since I've been in that room. They were somewhere in the room. Where cameras were in the Canton Police Department, I don't recall. The media's provided me information since this case took place, and I can't speak on what's my recollection and what's been media provided.
That's the rehearsed statement. So every time you hear the word media, that is her rehearsed statement. Now, I don't know who she's done the rehearsed statement with, but you might notice that this rehearsed kind of testimony has a similar feel to a lot of the Brian Albert, Caitlin Albert, that whole clan, the McAlbert clan, the Jen McCabe style of testimony, that this has a similar feeling because it was probably prepared by similar folks, people of the same, cut from the same cloth, with the same philosophies about how to testify and how to get around having to testify or tell the truth.
Cameras. I don't know where on my memory. Where they are.
So has the media informed you that there were internal security monitors at the dispatch location?
So the objection is sustained. Next question.
What do you recall from the dispatch room, as you put it? What do you recall being there in terms of monitors?
I remember there was a computer screen that had information about current calls, and then there was a 911 screen next to that. Those are the two computers that I would have been positioned in front of during this time. As a dispatch officer, by the way, you were a sworn officer at Yes.
that time, correct? Uniform, badge, gun, the whole works, right?
Yes.
Had you ever been in Sallyport at Canton PD?
Yes.
What's the Sallyport?
A Sallyport is a garage, essentially.
Okay. You're aware that the Sallyport garage had a camera, a security camera?
It would make sense because that's where we bring prisoners to drop them off.
Well, more than just makes sense, I'm asking you, do you recall that it had cameras that serviced the Sallyport garage? Security cameras.
It's where we brought prisoners, so there would be cameras, yes.
Okay, you're saying there would be cameras. I'm asking you, were there cameras?
According to the media, yes. I've seen the footage, so yes, there were cameras.
All right, so hold on. So I'm going to strike that, officer. You have to.
Okay, so according to the media, yes. Now, up until right now, right? Up until literally like 2 weeks ago, I don't know about you, but aside from the very limited images that we got from last trial, we don't have images of the interior of the police department, right? We have a few images from the mirrored video that was shown during the last trial. But she's talking about a time before that, right? Because the feds came to talk to her in August of 2023. The trial was in 2024. So what she's doing right now is conflating something that happened after with what she was going through in August of 2023, right? Because that's when she spoke to the feds, August of 2023.
Answer the question based on your own independent methods, okay? And if you don't have them, tell us. But you can't.
So look at that reaction. The judge tells her, you have to answer based on your own memory. And her reaction is, again, like a spoiled, petulant child. And it is childish. And she is kind of immature. I mean, just very obviously, because this is not how, any grown adult or self-respecting grown adult would act, even if they're trying to be obstructionist. But nonetheless, she's acting like this for a reason.
Reference what you know from the media.
All right. There were cameras in the Sallyport.
Thank you.
Oh, all of a sudden there are cameras in the Sallyport. So she does remember that there were cameras in the Sallyport. So now we have to ask ourselves, why would she not want to say that to begin with? Why would she not want to just tell us very matter-of-factly, like she just did, yeah, there are cameras in the Sallyport, and yeah, I was in dispatch, and they were in there. I don't remember exactly where things were, specifically, but yeah, I know there are cameras. What's the big deal?
Ms. Dever, do you want to be here today?
I have no relation to this case,
I
so
didn't ask you that. I asked you if you want to be here today.
Objection. This isn't direct.
So it's your witness.
I understand.
She can. No comments, just questions. Not. I understand that.
Do you want to be here today now?
I am put on the stand in a murder trial. I don't know why I'm here. I have no connection to this case.
You have no idea why you're here?
You have never talked to me. Nobody on the fence seems to talk to me since prior to the first trial. So I don't have any idea why I'm here.
No clue whatsoever, as you sit here, why you might have been called to the stand.
No.
Okay, so that's a lie. And she knows it's a lie. And the look on her face right now isn't indicative of her knowing. So what she's really saying is, I don't exactly know because you, Alan Jackson, didn't tell me why you were calling me to the stand, but I probably have a pretty good guess about why you called me to the stand. But do I know for sure because you told me? No. So is that a lie? Well, it's not really an outright lie, because the truth is, yeah, maybe he called you to testify about, the color drapes in the dispatch office. I mean, it's ridiculous. Of course she knows why he called her to testify, but she's trying to pretend like she truly doesn't have any reason to be called. She's trying to be as difficult and obstructionist, put as much distance between her and this case as she can. That is what she's trying to do. She's trying to distance herself from the case. That is what she's trying to do.
Are you uncomfortable testifying?
No.
But I will say one thing. Some of the language that she's used already indicates that she feels close to this case. So while she wants there to be distance between her and the case, she doesn't feel like there's distance. It feels very close. It feels probably ever present, like it's always lingering. It keeps coming up. She can't get rid of it, even if she wants to.
Part of my job.
You're a professional police officer, correct?
Correct.
That means you're a professional witness to a certain degree, correct?
In the crimes that I've gone on the stand before, yes, I have been.
And you understand the oath?
Yes, I do.
What is that oath?
The oath is to tell the truth.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
I'll rephrase it. Is there more to that oath when you raise your right hand as a witness?
I'm objecting.
This is me telling you not to forget to hit the like button so that we can pass this along and make sure more people find out about how horribly corrupt and evil the Commonwealth of Massachusetts actually is. So don't forget to hit the like button.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I inquire?
Yes.
Thank you. One of the cameras, one of the monitors that you had access to back on January 29th did show the footage from, or did it show the footage from that, one of the other Sallyport garage cameras?
Can you rephrase the question?
Sure, it was a little bit clunky on my part. Did one of the monitors that you looked at, that you had access to at the dispatch area, did it show the video footage or the video feed from the Sallyport garage?
Yes.
So I already said I don't remember where in dispatch the screen with the cameras was. There was a camera in the Sallyport. So if I'm going to make the assumption, then yes, of course. But now that's an assumption.
I'm not asking you for an assumption now. I'm asking you, did one of the feeds, now we've talked about the camera, the other side of the camera is the feed. Do you recall whether or not there was footage that you could see on a monitor in the dispatch area that showed the Sallyport?
I'm going to go with yes.
Okay.
A clarification.
How long?
So look, I don't know what that means. So what do you mean you're going to go with yes? Is your answer yes?
So why is she having such a hard time answering yes? Well, she's making it look like she wants us to think that the reason that she's struggling is because she doesn't really remember. That's what she wants us to believe, okay? She's trying to pretend like she has no real memory or she's confused and she doesn't remember what she saw. And it's a burden for her, right? She misremembered something. That's what she wants us to believe. But in actuality, what is happening is she's trying to figure out, she's doing like a cost-benefit analysis internally to try to figure out, okay, what's the cost of me saying yes to this question? What am I losing? What's going to happen to me? Is it okay if I say yes? Am I admitting anything that will get me in trouble if I say yes? So she's trying to distance herself from what she originally told the FBI. That's what she's trying to do. She's trying to distance herself from what she told the feds originally. So right now, she's hesitating because she's going through all the configurations of how whatever she says next could come back to hurt her later. And eventually she decides to say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. What time about did you take over the dispatch desk that morning?
Immediately following when the 911 call came in.
Would have been 6-ish in the morning. Does that sound about right?
Sometime, I would say towards the later of my shift, but it was the middle of winter and dark out, so I don't know if it was 4, 5, 6.
Understood. But it was still dark out.
Yes.
Once you took over the dispatch desk, did you stay there even past your normal shift ending to support the investigation that was ongoing?
Not to support the investigation. I was just on overtime.
Okay. So
All
you
right, so
stayed...
listen to that answer, okay? How many times in the history of the Canton Police Department do you think a police officer, a Boston police officer, has ever been found dead on the lawn of another police officer? Okay? How many times in the history of this police department do you think that's happened? Oh, never. Never, ever, ever. It's like, yeah, but the reason that they needed you is because everybody else was out dealing with the case, dear. But again, it's just another example of how she's trying to distance herself from the case. And I should also be fair to her by saying she's not just doing this for show. This isn't just her trying to pretend like she wants to be distant. This is her trying to psychologically distance herself from the case.
Past your normal end time of your shift that day?
Yes, on overtime.
You stayed into the afternoon, correct?
I believe the shift ended at 3:45 p.m. for the Canton Police.
But you stayed past your ending shift time, correct?
Okay, I believe is an interesting statement. Now, people have wanted to know if she was lying about this. Well, so far, when we go back and we look at all of the questions that she answered from the very beginning, she did not use I believe. Okay. She was very clear. Yes, no, yes, right? Since the very first sequence of questions, this woman has used very clear language. Yes, no. Yes, no. And her efforts to try to be vague and obstructionist were undermined by the judge and by Alan Jackson saying, you got to be clear. You have to go from memory. And even in those instances, she chose yes. Now we have her saying, I believe that my shift ended. We have not heard her start with the vague language. Now, I believe generally is putting distance between you and whatever you're saying, right? You're holding out the possibility that maybe what I'm saying isn't true. We don't generally use I believe unless we're trying to be vague, purposefully vague, because we're not sure. But I think for Ms. Devers, she's more sure than she wishes she was. She wishes that she was more vague.
I'm sorry, I'll rephrase it. Did you stay past your ending shift time?
For my regular shift, yes, because I was on overtime on the day shift.
Did you observe anything unusual that stood out in your mind that occurred, pardon me, in the Sallyport while you were on that shift?
So we've discussed this previously. I can't make that statement on the stand because I've been provided information released by the defense that it was not a memory, that it was a distorted memory. Therefore, I can't state it because at this point it would be a lie.
Okay, so this is the rehearsed statement, and it's coming out all kinds of screwed up, right? Didn't come out the way she wanted. She's trying to rebound. She's kind of grasping to figure out how to piece it all back together so that it sounds coherent, and that's what she's going to do now.
I cannot make that statement that you're wanting me to make on the stand because I've advised that that would be a lie.
Ms. Dever.
Okay, so let's hear the rehearsed statement again. And again, when she starts out, you'll notice that she's reaching all over. She's pulling from the rehearsed parts of the statement. And then at the very end, she remembers enough to pull it together to at least make a coherent statement.
Sallyport while you were on that shift.
So we've discussed this previously. I can't make that statement on the stand because I've been provided information released by the defense that it was not a memory, that it was a distorted memory. Therefore, I can't state it because at this point it would be a lie. I cannot make that statement that you're wanting me to make on the stand because I've advised that that would be a lie.
All right, so this is a lie. This is a very straightforward lie. She's lying. She's lying about the fact that she doesn't remember what happened. That's what's happening right now. She's lying. And I want you to look at her face. She looks scared and almost like doomed, right? In fact, this look on her face right now says to me, I'm worried my life is over. I mean, that's what that look indicates to me. I'm worried that my life is over. And this is a very legitimately scared person. And maybe she should be scared because she just did perjure herself outright. That was a lie. She does know what happened.
Ms. Dever, I've never asked you to make a statement one way or the other on the stand. I'm asking you an open-ended question.
Okay,
Did
so
you,
prior to
let
the
me ask
first-
the question. Did you observe something in the Sallyport garage on January 29th, 2022 that you found unusual, that stuck out in your mind?
Given factual information that makes it so I know I did not, no.
So the answer is no.
Correct.
Do you remember being interviewed on August 9th, 2023?
I do.
That was by a separate law enforcement agency, correct?
Yes.
2 separate law enforcement agents, is that right?
Yes.
And you were advised during the course of that interview on August 29th of something, correct?
Can you rephrase
I'm sorry,
that?
August 9th.
So what was I advised of? Can you rephrase that?
Sure. Were you advised that lying to those officers would be a crime?
So it was a willing conversation. I've spoken with their legal team. Because of the fact I was provided factual information that showed a statement of mine was a false memory, it was not a lie. Therefore, I made it in good faith, and I retracted given information that it could not be accurate.
All right. So again, this statement, she actually did a nice job of remembering. Okay. So she got her rehearsed statement out. This was the planned rehearsed statement. This is what she tried to pull together a few minutes ago. She was able to pull together here something about the legal conversation that she had when she called the FBI back to try to tell them that she misremembered, or that information that would come out later somehow meant that she must have not remembered correctly what happened at the Sallyport. But she does remember what happened at the Sallyport. She is lying about that. She knows exactly what she saw, and that was her cover or way to get out of having to try to testify in court during the last trial.
Ms. Dever, did you understand my question?
Yes, I did. You threatened to charge me with perjury during our phone call prior to the first trial if I didn't lie on the stand right now. I'm telling you, I did not see anything. Factually, I've been provided evidence by a timeline that it is not correct.
Ms. Dever, my question was this. Were you advised that it was a crime to lie to those law enforcement agents? Yes or no?
No.
They never told you, they never admonished you that it would be a crime to lie to them?
Objection.
Sustained. As to form, Mr. Jackson.
Sure. Did they advise you of anything? Any consequences of lying to them?
So we had a willing conversation.
Yes or no?
I don't recall.
Okay, there's your answer.
You don't recall if they advised you of anything?
No, because it wasn't.
As a trained law enforcement agent.
Go ahead and ask a question, but both of you only one at a time, okay?
As a trained law enforcement officer, are you aware that it's a crime to lie to certain other law enforcement agents?
When you have intent to lie, yes.
Okay.
So when you have intent to lie, yes. As long as she can find a way to reason that she thought she saw something, but she couldn't have seen it because something she learned later contradicts what she thought she saw. So she misremembered. That's what she's trying to tell us happened. But that is a lie. She knows what she saw. So this is her way of getting out of telling the world what she saw.
So you knew that when you spoke to these law enforcement officers, correct?
Yes.
That's true. She did.
Did you tell these law enforcement officers that you, in fact, saw Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz go into the
look at her, look to Brennan to bail her out. She looks right at Hank Brennan to object for her. And that's really interesting because if you have no relationship with the Commonwealth in this case, if you have had no prior discussions with the Commonwealth, as she tried to claim earlier that she hadn't, would you feel comfortable looking at Hank Brennan to object for you like that? But can't trust Hank Brennan, dear. Hopefully you didn't count on that.
You can finish this question. It's okay. Go ahead.
Did you tell those law enforcement agents on August 9th, 2023, that you saw Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz go into the Sallyport together and alone with the SUV for a wildly long time?
That was my recollection at the time.
So you did say that?
At the time, that is what I recollected.
Okay.
Now, also just keep in mind, we know that Brian Higgins was at that Sallyport all day. I mean, he was at the Canton Police Department the entire day. He leaves 34 Fairview. He goes to the Canton PD. He gets there like 1:27 in the morning or something. Then he eventually goes back to his house. We know he has the butt dial conversation at like 2:27 or whatever, like an hour later. Then is woken up by Berkowitz at like 6 a.m. By 7 or 7:30 a.m. is back at 34 Fairview for the Minion meeting with Brian Albert and Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe, Julie Albert, that whole little group, okay? Now, after that, he goes back to the Canton Police Department and spends the entire day there, and he never clocks out. If I remember correctly, there's no like official time that he leaves the Canton PD. It's like he just kind of gets lost, like his key card is moving around the building and then it's not clear when he wasn't there or when he finally leaves. So he could have been there all night.
You and I spoke, along with Mr. Unetti and Ms. Little, on a conference call last year sometime. You remember that?
Yes.
Between the time that you were interviewed on August 9th, 2023, and when we spoke sometime in maybe it was April or so of last year, does that sound about right?
Yes.
Did you have any conversation with any other party about your potential involvement in this case?
No.
Did you have a conversation with anybody in the commissioner's office at Boston Police Department?
Not about anything malicious.
When she's deceptive, she dances around the question. She refuses to answer directly. So listen to this again. He asks, in the time between when you spoke to the FBI and when you called us to tell us you were not going to testify for us because you misremembered or whatever, in April of 2024, before the last trial, did anything happen? Did you talk to anybody about this case? So she says no, which, by the way, tells you that she can be deceptive when she uses the phrase no. She knows what he was really asking. But in her mind, it's okay to say no. Why? Because technically, the commissioner didn't talk to her about the case. Technically. So let's hear this exchange again. I'll back it up.
With anybody in the commissioner's office at Boston Police Department?
Not about anything malicious.
I didn't use the word malicious. Why do you say malicious?
I had a conversation, but it was my department saying, regardless of what I need to say on the stand, they support me.
You were asked to go to the commissioner's office, correct?
Yes.
How long had you been on the Boston Police Department at the time that you were invited to go up to Commissioner Michael Cox's office?
It had to have been before the first trial, so... And I know it was when the agency released information to outside people.
That's not my question.
Okay, so I don't recall.
Okay. You don't recall how long you had been on the force, generally, at the time that you were called up to the commissioner's office, on the Boston Police Department?
No.
Was it 5 years, 2 years, 2 months? Give me a ballpark.
So I've been on the department for 2 years and 2 months. I would say somewhere in the range of a year.
Okay. Did you find it unusual for would you call...
Look at her face. Here, watch her face. Now she's starting to look like she's going to cry. I don't think she's about to break out into tears, but she's starting to look sad. Like now all that fear is starting to shift into like sad.
Rookie police officer would be called up to the commissioner's office personally to discuss a matter.
It was a reflection of how good of a leader he is. It was not anything that
Okay, so that's a rehearsed statement. That was her rehearsed statement. And again, remember, when she's being deceptive, she doesn't answer yes. Right? She deflects. She doesn't answer the question. She skirts around the question by answering a different question. Okay? So we'll hear this again.
2 months, I would say somewhere in the range of a year.
Okay. Did you find it unusual would you call yourself a rookie back then?
Yes,
Did you find it unusual that a rookie police officer would be called up to the commissioner's office personally to discuss a matter?
it was a reflection of how good of a leader he is. It was not anything that I found unusual, given the fact he is someone who wanted to show support for his officer.
So,
Right, of course. And again, that was a rehearsed statement. And she's pretty good with the rehearsed statements. She remembers them for the most part. I mean, she's better than most of us would be. I mean, she must have really practiced what she'd say in this instance. But she doesn't answer the question, right? Because the question is yes or no. Did you think that it was unusual? And the truth is, of course it was unusual. Yeah. There's 2,500 police officers. How many of them do you think get to meet with the commissioner of the Boston Police Department? Probably like 10. Probably not many. How many rookies? 0. None. How many beat cops? None.
I'm guessing all of your training class or all of your entry classes at Boston PD, they've all gone up to the commissioner's office as well?
I don't know anyone else who's been in this particular circumstance.
Do you know anybody else who's been called up to the commissioner's office at your level at the Boston Police Department?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know of any of your colleagues with your level of experience that have been called up to the commissioner's office for a specific instance?
Objection.
That's sustained.
Now, when you went up to the commissioner's office, did you respond to his indication that he wanted to see you open his office?
It wasn't a direct line of contact from him.
Okay. Did you respond? Did you ultimately go? That's what I mean by respond. Did you go to his office?
He's my boss, so yes.
Okay. And who else was in that office?
So that was honest. He's my boss. So yes. Yes, I went. Of course I went. Like she's laughing. Yeah, of course. Duh. Right? So she can answer questions honestly. And when she answers honestly, she's very direct. Yes, I went.
Did you go to his office?
He's my boss, so yes.
Okay. And who else was in that office?
Me and him. The two of us.
General Counsel of the Boston Police Department?
No, it's just me and him.
Okay. And she's being honest, this is true. It was just her and him. The commissioner of the police called her, the rookie cop, into his office to say what?
The conversation that we had last year, did you say that General Legal Counsel for the Boston Police Department was also there?
Objection.
Not during
Sustained.
that conversation.
Objection.
Next question.
Sure. Was there another time that you went to the commissioner's office for General Legal?
So she wanted to clarify. She had an opportunity. So she doesn't like the fact that Alan Jackson got that part wrong. She wanted to correct him there. So in his mind, the way he heard whatever she said on their conference call in April 2024, the way he heard it was her, the lawyer for the police department, and the police commissioner in a meeting. But that's not what happened. And she's trying to correct that. And despite the fact that Brennan tried to give her an out by objecting, she still wanted to try to make it clear to him that no, it was just me and the commissioner. And I believe that mostly because that's not something that you would want to insist is true unless it was true, right? Because that could sound shady. It would be very easy to misconstrue. You've got a young, rookie, attractive female cop alone with the commissioner. That feels yucky and could definitely sound yucky, and she's not stupid. So if she's telling us that, it's true. There wasn't a lawyer in that room with her. And it's interesting that she doesn't take the out. She basically treats it like an order or a command. She doesn't want to stop talking there. Right? So let's go back and watch her body language during this exchange. It's very interesting.
No, it's just me and him.
During the conversation we had last year, did you say that General Legal Counsel for the Boston Police Department was also there?
Objection.
Not during that conversation.
Objection.
You see that? So that was like, yes, sir. That was her going back into, I'm a good soldier, I'll do what I'm told. But she didn't want to. I mean, she blew past that because she wanted to answer Jackson's question.
Next question.
Sure. Was there another time that you went to the Commissioner's office where General Legal Counsel was there?
No.
Have you ever met General Legal Counsel for the Boston Police Department?
Yes.
Was it in the Commissioner's office?
No.
When was it?
During my conversation with the agents.
You took a lawyer with you to talk to this other law enforcement agency?
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this.
You took a lawyer with you? That was a big no-no, but nice job by Alan Jackson. He's so quick, right? And you have to think about the risk. You know, I know we're not here to really talk about this part of it, but you have to think about the calculated risk that the defense took bringing this woman in. They had no idea what she was going to say. I mean, they knew the story, right? They knew exactly what it is that they just told us and asked her about, but they didn't know how she was going to act. They didn't know whether she was going to, get up on the stand and plead the fifth the whole way, right? So he had to just kind of be prepared to roll with whatever happened. And he did a great job. He handled her beautifully, I have to say. It made me, not that I didn't have a lot of respect for Alan Jackson. I mean, I think his closing last year and opening this year, probably two of the best summations I've ever heard. I mean, just beautiful. In fact, there's been times since the last trial where on a few occasions I've just listened to his closing argument because it was beautiful. It was just a perfect closing argument. If I was in law school, I'd be studying it, right? But he does a beautiful job here. And also he's ballsy. He's willing to say and do things that are hard, right? Like, I don't want to deal with this girl. Do you want to stand up in court and try to get her to talk? As obstructionist and difficult and childish as she's being, do you want to deal with this person? No, of course not, right? So let's see what happens next. It's funny that they moved Paul O'Keefe. That he's now like relegated to the back. He used to sit there right next to Karen. It's like, how did this judge let that happen for this whole time? What a disgrace. She's a disgrace, this judge. She let him sit there and intimidate her for the entire time.
May I continue, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Dever, when we left off, I was asking you about the meeting at the Commissioner's office. And I want to clear this up. Was General Legal Counsel in that office or not when you had a meeting with the Commissioner, Michael Cox?
No, it was just me and the commissioner.
At some point, did the Commissioner say to you that Boston Police Department, insofar as your connection to this case is concerned, Boston Police Department fully supports you?
Yes.
Did he also say, do the right thing?
That's a direct quote, so I can't recollect if he said a direct quote 2 years ago.
A year ago.
Okay, so that is deception. That is deception. That is a lie. So we already know that Miss Devers, when she lies, she tries to obfuscate. She tries to not answer directly. That is her deception tag. She absolutely tries to skirt around having to say yes or no. She'll use no only if in her mind she can rationalize why it's okay. So she'll use it to be deceptive, but to outright lie, she doesn't like to. So this is a lie. He 100% said do the right thing. No question about it. This is a lie. And she's terrible at it, by the way. This is a terrible liar right here. This is a big fat lie. 100%. He said, we fully support you and do the right thing. And oh, yes, by the way, although I don't think it comes out here, It turns out that Miss Devers went from making $90,000 a year with Canton PD to making $140,000 a year with the Boston Police Department. And my guess is that's a little on the high end for a rookie beat cop. So take that for what you will.
To us, the defense. Did you tell the defense that when you were called up to the commissioner's office, we told you two things? Commissioner Cox told you, number one, Boston Police Department supports you, and Officer Deaver, do the right thing.
So he said my name correctly. He said Dever. And
that's my mistake. Let's see, you want me to repeat the question so I get
So,
right?
Mr. Jackson, let's go ahead and answer.
That was awesome, by the way. That was so awesome. The way that Jackson tried to use the shot that she took at him about getting her name wrong to ask the question a third time is brilliant. You have to see that that is brilliant. You got to give the nod to Jackson on that one, because instead of just apologizing, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. That was my bad. Do you want me to ask it again? Do you want me to say it a third time for the jury to hear it again? A third time with your name, pronounced correctly, Miss Dever? That was awesome.
yes, and he said nothing with the intent of guiding me one way or the
I asked you
other.
what his intent was, madam. I asked you what he said to you. What were his words to you?
That he supports me.
And?
Just wanted me to tell the truth up here.
And his words.
Okay, so again, this is a lie. She's lying. But now we have a much clearer understanding of why she's lying. And again, what we see here is she's not going to answer directly. And instead, she tries to throw in another rehearsed statement about how the commissioner is this great guy, or, would never lie, doesn't want her to lie, whatever BS her statement is here.
What he said to you. What were his words to you?
That he supports me.
And?
Just wanted me to tell the truth up here.
And his words were, do the right thing. Correct?
I don't recall.
Look at her face. Look at that face. That face tells us everything we need to know about what's going on. So now that we know, we have more context, we have more information, we can see what happened here. Okay? She was never questioned by anybody, never asked to write a report, never said anything to anybody, somehow ends up being interviewed by the feds because they did do their due diligence. They probably saw that she was working that night and asked her, what'd you see? Not wanting to lie to the feds, she winds up telling them, I saw Berkowitz and Higgins in the Sallyport near Karen's car, the Lexus, for a really long time, for like an ungodly, unusually, wildly long time. But then, as it gets closer to the trial, last year, a year ago, she starts to panic and tries to figure out, how can I get out of testifying? Everybody, of course, knows, the commissioner knows. At that point, she probably just transferred from Canton to the Boston Police Department. And listen, for all we know, maybe that was why they did it. Maybe she got the transfer because they were trying to keep her close. They wanted to make her happy so that she wouldn't testify against them. So for all we know, she was only given the job at the Boston Police Department for this very reason. And now we know that as a rookie who was paid an unusually large amount of money for a rookie, $140,000, she was called into the commissioner's office and he said, we fully support you, and Ms. Devers, do the right thing, meaning lie your face off. Perfect. So now we know why she's lying.
How many other times have you testified in a court of law during the course of your job?
Two dozen, 3 dozen.
And
Actually testified probably Ballpark a dozen times.
In any of those other cases, has Commissioner Michael Cox called you up to his office to discuss your testimony in any of those cases? Yes or no?
That's not a yes or a no answer.
Well, yes, it actually is, Ms. Dever.
So no comments, okay?
He
Just
doesn't want to
Do you understand the
answer.
question?
The question, yes. The implication,
The question is, in any of those, I'm asking you an open-ended question. In any of those cases, Officer Dever,
No, actually, he's not asking her an open-ended question. He's asking her a closed-ended question.
not including this one, has Commissioner Michael Cox ordered you up to his office to discuss your testimony?
no.
Thank you.
So she answered honestly. See? She can answer honestly. You know, she figured, I don't have to fight about this. It's not that important. This is somebody who's performing for somebody who's not in the room. Okay? So who do you think the audience that matters the most to her right now is? Because it's not us. And it's not the jury. And it's not the defense. And it's not Hank Brennan. Who do you think the audience that she really needs to be careful of actually is?
all right, Mr. Brennan.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
My name's Hank Brennan. We have never met before.
Correct.
Have you ever spoken to me before?
No.
The defense team, Attorney Jackson, asked you some questions this morning.
Yes.
It sounds like you've met them before.
Only by phone call.
How many times have you spoken to Attorney Jackson or anybody on the defense team before today?
Prior to the first trial, it was one phone call where we discussed the case. Outside of that, there may have been one other phone call before the first trial, but it wasn't a discussion of the case. And then prior to this trial, I received a phone call that said, confirm you will be available for one of these days.
Other than confirming you'd be available, was there any discussion before this trial with anybody on the defense?
Not about this case, no.
So the conversation, the substantive conversation, was before the past event last year?
Yes, a year and a few months ago.
You worked at the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I did.
You were a police officer?
Yes, I was.
And it sounds like on January 29, 2022, at some point you were asked to attend the desk?
Yes.
The desk is at the front of the police department where you see people coming in and out of the police station?
Yes, there's glass windows.
That night, did you have any difficulty with your memory of the specific things that you saw that night?
I was never on the scene. I never spoke to a witness. I never met a...
Okay. So this is her deflecting again. She's lying. You know, I mean, she's not telling you the truth. He just asked her, did she have problems remembering that night? And instead of answering yes or no, she's deflecting and starting to go off about how she has no real connection to this case.
victim. I never spoke with the suspect. This was just a random shift for me 3.5 years ago at a desk that I wasn't asked to recollect for about 1.5 years after the occurrences of that night.
Did law enforcement, not the state police or Canton police, did law enforcement ask you about your memory sometime after that night?
The agents asked me about 1.5 years later. It was the August of 2023 meeting.
So you see here, this woman doesn't give a crap about the jury. So she doesn't care what she says. Ms. Devers is on trial right now for her life because from her vantage point, if she doesn't say the right things, not only is she finished at the Boston Police Department and the commissioner will have her ass, but she's a cop. She has to go to work every day with fellow brothers in blue. If she doesn't say the right thing, they're going to freaking torture her. I mean, she could be in real trouble. Right? Like, not only just be fired or run off of the job, but then have to deal with these people for the rest of her life. Right? This is a local girl. I mean, her BFF is Sarah Levinson. You know? So she clearly does not want to be on the wrong side here.
So actually a year and 8 months later was the first time I ever spoke about this case.
When they spoke to you a year and 8 months later, ask you about your memory.
So she doesn't care about the jury. She only cares about the way she's coming across as it pertains to the police, to the other cops. That's what she cares about. So she's not mindful of the language she's using, and she's not aware that she's not supposed to say things like the feds or the federal agents or the FBI. She doesn't, or trial. She's just not aware of any of it.
Sometime after that night?
The agents asked me about a year and a half later. It was the August of 2023 meeting. So actually a year and 8 months later was the first time I ever spoke about this case.
When they spoke to you a year and 8 months later, did you suggest or share or tell them that you might have seen Chief Berkowitz and Mr. Higgins near the Sallyport area?
I told them on the day of that I saw that. I didn't make any indications it was anything bad. I just said I saw them. And it was in good faith that I believed I saw that. That was the extent of that comment.
So you had told them you believed you saw Mr. Berkowitz and Mr. Higgins in the Sallyport area that day?
On January 29th during my day shift, yes.
Did you then learn any information that helped you remember when your shift ended that day?
So I know my shift ended at 3:45 p.m. So I know that I left then. That wasn't ever one of my questions. The defense released a timeline.
Okay, so I know I left that day. So this is not truthful. This is not truthful. What she's telling us, she doesn't know that she left that day. She didn't leave that day. She was there. She was there that day. She was there past 3:45.
During my day shift, yes.
Did you then learn any information that helped you remember when your shift ended that day?
So I know my shift ended at 3:45 p.m. So I know that I left then. That wasn't ever one of my questions. The defense released a timeline right prior to the first trial that the vehicle on that day did not arrive in the Sallyport until about an hour and a half after I left, meaning it is not possible that I saw that.
When you saw this information, did you think about your memory?
So when I saw that information, it made it clear to me that there was a distortion of the timeline, and the false memory I created, I provided in good faith, but I retracted immediately, being provided evidence that it was not possible.
Okay, so this is the rehearsed statement, and I don't know who helped her to figure out how to get out of having to be honest about this. You know, one thing that did occur to me, is it possible that Berkowitz at the time, or somebody at Canton PD, or even the commissioner came to her with a time card and said, here, you know, and it's got that she was clocked out at 3:45 somehow or something like that. That's occurred to me as a possibility because she's lying. So she is lying. What she's telling you is not true. This whole nonsense about a false memory is a lie. It's a lie.
Did you retract it to? Who did you tell?
So I told the defense team prior to the first trial. I also contacted the agents. The agents assured me that good faith.
Not what they said, but what you thought. Not what they said to you, but
Did they threaten to put you in jail when you told them about your mistake?
No, I even spoke with the legal team, and they said that I made a comment in good faith. There was absolutely no way that I could be charged with anything of being malicious.
Before we get to your conversation with the defense team, now I wasn't there in that conversation, was I?
No.
Have you ever shared that conversation with me?
I've never shared it with anyone.
Before we get to that, you seem a bit anxious to me. Are you anxious?
Confused as to why I'm here, but anxious now.
Are you, have you received any negative pushback because of you sharing your memory?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
No.
Have you received any unwarranted attention from the public or media?
Not to my knowledge, but I didn't go digging to find it.
When you mentioned the media sent you something, what did they send you?
So I've seen things in the media. No media has ever been directed for me to find it. It's just this case is unavoidable as a local person on the internet who sees things that get shared.
So inevitably, you were contacted by the...
That was a rehearsed statement. So this case is unavoidable if you're a local person on the internet because things get shared.
Yes.
Yes, prior to the first trial.
You mentioned that somebody had suggested you be charged with perjury.
Yes.
Who did that?
One of the male members of the defense team.
Why did they say that to you?
Objection.
Sustained.
What were you discussing when you were threatened with perjury?
They were essentially telling me what they were looking for me to say on the stand.
What were they looking for you to say?
They were looking for me to say that I saw Higgins and Berkowitz in the garage with the car.
Did you share with them that that wasn't an accurate memory?
Yes.
How did they respond?
They became very aggressive, raised their voices, and the one word that I can very definitely remember is they said that they would charge me with perjury.
Well, I'm sure they didn't say they were charged her with perjury. She heard the one word perjury, right? And I think we can probably all read between the lines and figure out what the defense really said, because they don't charge anybody, right? That's not their job, Ms. Devers. So what probably happened was they reminded her that if you lie to the FBI, that, you know, they can charge you with perjury. I'm sure that's what happened. But again, this is her having to say these things, and we already know why. She's got a very small audience that she's performing for right now, and she knows that what she says, as far as they are concerned, is vital. She has to communicate that she does not want to be here. She has to be difficult. She has to be obstructionist, and she has to try to essentially shoot her own credibility down in order to make her bosses feel okay with what she's saying.
What did they want you to say?
They wanted me to say that statement, although I knew at that point it was not an accurate statement given the timeline.
How many times were you threatened with perjury?
At least once during the phone call, but once you say it once, it was enough.
What else happened during that phone call? Tell us the tenor of it. Tell us the content of it.
That was essentially the thing I remember most, because I understood that was what they wanted me to provide for the trial. I was never called for the first trial. Therefore, I'm not exactly sure what else there is for me to say when the one thing that they wanted on the stand, it is factually not correct and cannot be provided.
When they threatened you to charge you with perjury,
Interesting that she's using the word "and it is factually not correct." Think about that. It is factually not correct and cannot be provided. So that statement is a lie. If you were human and not lying, you would say, that's not true. That's what you would say. That didn't happen. I didn't do that. You would not say, it is factually incorrect. Okay, so we know this is not true. It is factually correct. Okay, so she did see Berkowitz and Higgins in the Sallyport with the car. But then she goes on to say it is factually incorrect. Right, let's hear it exactly. I want to make sure we get it exactly right. Let's hear the whole thing.
What else there is for me to say when the one thing that they wanted on the stand, it is factually not correct and cannot be provided.
It is factually not correct, which is even worse than incorrect, because she's now uncontracting many words, right? But then she goes on and says, and cannot, another uncontracted word, be provided. There's distancing, right? Be provided. What do you mean? What are we providing? You see how she's trying to distance herself from that statement? It is factually not correct and therefore cannot be provided. So she's trying to put distance between herself and the word provided, like it's not coming from her, like it's something that is objective, right? So again, that's distance, which is just more lying. This is a lie. It is factually correct what she saw, and she could tell them. Whether she feels like she could or couldn't is a different story. But from a purely objective and factual perspective, she saw Berkowitz and Higgins. I am 100% sure of it.
when they threatened you to charge you with perjury, tell us what your state of mind was, your demeanor.
Disappointment that legal counsel would go that route with someone who is, from a factual timeline, saying something is incorrect. There was no retracting.
It's really funny. Think about it. Everything that she's saying, she's completely removed from. This case has really weighed on her very heavily, and she just wants it to be something distant from her. And the problem is, it doesn't go away. It's like the gift that keeps giving from her view. She just she feels close to it, even though she just wants to feel like it's far away.
Based on emotion, it was very clear, given the timeline, it could not be correct.
Once again, she's talking about it like we're not talking about her. It was very clear, given the timeline, that it could not be correct. Like, not my memory, but it could not be correct, which means it is correct.
Now, you work for the Boston Police Department?
Yes.
And by the way, when you were with Canton, did you ever talk to anybody about reading or planting evidence or doing anything like that?
No, and this conspiracy theory came out a year and a half later. I was gone.
Did anybody from Canton ever try to suggest to you you should or shouldn't say something to help her side of the case?
No, because I was never spoken to until far after I left.
So as I'm doing some editing here, I notice that Miss Devers is asked by Hank Brennan, has anyone from the Canton Police Department ever spoken to you to try to influence you one way or the other about this case? And she responds, no, because I was never spoken to until after I left. Now that's a really interesting question that makes me very suspect. Not only because she says no, then offers an explanatory statement followed by a negative, and never is always questionable because never say never, right? Yeah, I would say I'm pretty suspect of this statement and would put a big question mark on it.
You should say anything whatsoever that would be unhelpful to the defense?
No.
Has the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office ever encouraged you to testify in any way other than the truth?
No.
When you spoke to...
Well, they didn't actually approach her at all.
Did he in any way ever tell you to shape your testimony?
Not at all.
Wow. Oh my God. Let's see that again. Not at all. Yikes. That is not good.
No.
When you spoke to the chief of the Boston Police Department, did he in any way ever tell you to shape your testimony?
Not at all.
Wow. Yikes. I don't think that's good. Not at all. That's language we really haven't heard. And I think she doesn't believe that. I think she 100% believes that he absolutely was clear that she is not to say a word.
When you met with the Boston Police Department Commissioner, did he ever ask you the substance of what your testimony would or wouldn't be under oath?
He made it very clear he did not want to discuss the case at all.
When you spoke to the people at the Boston Police
That was
Department, have they ever weighed in?
Just FYI, she evaded the question there, so she didn't answer the question.
Did he in any way ever tell you to shape your testimony?
Not at all.
When you met with the Boston Police Department Commissioner, did he ever ask you the substance of what your testimony would or wouldn't be under oath?
He made it very clear he did not want to discuss the case at all.
When you spoke to the people at the Boston Police Department, have they ever weighed in any way on what they think you should or shouldn't say?
No.
As you're testifying here today, are you under any tension, undue influence, stress, threat?
There is discomfort with the way that there's attempting to guide what my testimony is, but I don't feel any need to fall into it because I'm here to speak the truth on the stand. That's my livelihood.
When you were threatened with perjury, how long was that conversation with the defense?
I believe it was just about an hour on the phone. My phone log on my physical phone would not go back far enough for me to be able to retrieve the date or the time that phone call took place.
That conversation lasted an hour?
Approximately.
How did it end?
Not on a good note in the slightest. I remember it was a pretty hasty hang-up on both ends.
Thank you for your time.
May we approach briefly?
Yes.
There's a few more questions that come out here that are definitely worth hearing.
On that phone call, threatened to charge you with perjury.
Yes.
You're a police officer, correct?
Yes.
Who charges people with crimes?
If a crime is committed, there can be a report of it.
Who
So,
charges people with crimes?
in the end, it's going to go through the court system. So the district attorney, the ADAs, that's who pursues it in a court setting.
Have you ever seen a defense attorney charge anybody with a crime?
So you can seek out reporting someone for it.
Have you ever seen a defense attorney charge someone with a crime, ma'am?
Personally, no.
Right. The fact of the matter is, nobody ever threatened you with perjury, did they?
Oh, they did. Yes.
That's it.
I contacted the FBI regarding it.
Oh, did you?
I did.
You have a report?
I have an email conversation where I sent the 2 questions I had. She responded, I will pass these along. I was contacted by their legal team. They reassured me perjury was not applicable because I made a statement in good faith. Upon further information, I retracted it, corrected it, and made it clear that I could no longer say it because I knew that it was not a clear reflection of the events that took place.
That's a mouthful.
Yes.
My question is, do you have a report from the FBI saying that you reported that someone on the Karen Reed defense team threatened to charge you, your words, with perjury? You have a report to that effect?
No.
No.
No, because that's not what happened. So let me just be clear about what happened here. Inflating what happened. She's trying to make it sound like the defense, because of what the defense team said, she contacted the FBI and asked them about whether or not she could be charged with perjury. But actually, what happened was she had to ask them that to cover her own ass, which had nothing to do with the defense team, because she's not an idiot. She absolutely knows it would not be Karen Reed's defense team that she'd have to worry about. It would be the feds who she lied to. So she can throw this nonsense out there at Karen Reed's attorneys, but it's nonsense. It's garbage. Again, it's a way to distance herself from the words that she said and to try to protect herself from the police commissioner and the Boston Police Department, who will make her life a living hell if she says the wrong thing.
Your job as a police officer is to be objective, isn't it?
Yes.
You're not supposed to take an adversarial position against one side or the other, correct?
I don't.
Just right down the middle, just the facts, as you know them, correct?
Yes.
You feel like you're being unbiased in your testimony here today in front of these jurors?
I'm telling the truth.
You think you're being fair to both sides?
All I have to do is tell the truth. If it's not perceived to be fair, that's someone else's opinion.
Let's talk about that truth for a second.
Yeah, really.
What you told those law enforcement agents on August 9th, 2023 was, quote, you recalled seeing Higgins at the station later that day on Saturday. Never thought it was also weird that Higgins and Chief Kenny Berkowitz were by themselves in the Sallyport of the police department, by themselves while Karen Reed's car was parked inside. Higgins was a witness and present at the gathering where O'Keefe was found dead outside, and then he was in the presence of important evidence. You were sitting at dispatch by yourself and saw on the camera outside of the Sallyport when they walked in.
Objection to the entire reading.
So beyond the scope, so you have to keep it.
There's more to the statement, Your Honor. Do you remember making that statement to the officers?
My recollection of the time was that, so yes.
Okay, great. Did you go on to say, speaking of being truthful, did you go on to say...
I'm objecting.
All right, so you have to ask differently, but I need to see you for a minute with this and bring that with you, please.
This is just so ridiculous. I'm objecting. Hank Brennan. What if this guy is? You know, it's amazing. Hank Brennan. This is a guy who tries to purport himself to try to. This is a guy who tries to put himself out there like he's against corruption, government corruption, and now he's Mr. Government Corruption, right? Like, how ironic is that? It's pretty despicable, actually. It's pretty disgusting. Now he's sticking up for this poor woman who actually is being threatened by the police commissioner, the Boston police commissioner. And this guy is trying to whitewash the Boston Police Department. Yeah. Truth and justice guy. Yeah, right. Hank Brennan, truth and justice. What a disaster. There's two things that will never go together again.
Yes.
Thank you. Officer Dever, did you go on to say in that interview, quote, you never saw them leave, them being Brian Higgins and Chief Ken Berkowitz. You never saw them leave, but you recalled thinking to yourself that they were in the Sallyport for a wildly long time together in there, end quote. Did you say that?
That was my recollection of the time.
Okay.
So yes.
Have you ever heard of... By the way, you indicated under questioning by Mr. Brennan that you knew what they wanted from me, meaning the defense, what they wanted from me.
Yes.
You saying that?
Yes.
Do you remember on that phone call that we read directly from the exact same report that I just read from? You remember that?
And I told you the same thing then.
That's not
Yes.
a question.
Objection.
Sustained.
My question is, just answer my question, Officer Dever. Did we read to you, were you read the exact same thing that I just read to you on that phone call?
Like you can't remember my name, I don't remember.
I can remember your name, Ms. Dever.
Okay, so the answer is I don't remember. No
The answer is
comments.
more than that, Judge. I think we all...
All right, so
I'll ask
no
you.
comments, just questions, please.
Do you recall us telling you that we were looking for the truth about your
Objection.
comments?
I'm going to allow it.
That we were looking for the truth.
Which I gave you, yes.
Did you also say on that phone call something to the effect of, I know you're going to tear me a new one because I'm changing my testimony?
Changing, no. But you're trying to do that.
Did you say, I know you're going to tear me a new one?
It's what you're trying to do, so yes.
Actually, what
That's what you're trying to do, so yes.
you said was, you're going to tear me a new asshole, didn't you?
I don't recall that, so that's putting words in my mouth.
So it's funny because there's been a few times where she gets this kind of like defensive posture and she does this weird, I don't know. This is when she really goes into like snotty teenager and it's very defensive, but it's a character. It's not her. Almost immediately following these like very protected, like, I don't even know how to use words to describe them correctly, but there are these moments where she gets into character and she's strong and tough and nothing bothers me and ha ha ha, right? But almost immediately following these little episodes is like fear, like real fear, like real waves of fear.
I'm not asking you to put words in your mouth. I'm asking you if you remember saying that during that phone call. Oh,
I don't
I know
recall.
you're going to tear me a new asshole.
I don't recall.
Okay. But you do remember saying something to the effect of, I know you're going to tear me a new one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard of something called the blue wall of silence?
Objection.
Sustained.
So now she's starting to get a little concerned. She's starting to get a little distracted, like, all right, when is this going to be over?
Do you think it's important for police officers to protect one another in the field and out?
Objection.
Sustained.
Have you spoken with anyone, not Mr. Brennan, he's covered that, have you spoken with anyone from the district attorney's office about your involvement in this case? Ever?
No.
Never?
Unless you're going to provide a person. I'd never talked to any of these people.
Have you talked to anyone at the DA's office at all, in any regard?
Not to my recollection.
How about indirectly?
Not to my knowledge.
Are you friends with any people that you're aware of that are connected to this case? Are you personal friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, personal friends with anyone that's connected with this case?
Other people who's been on the witness stand, one person, yes.
Who's that?
Sarah Levinson.
How long have you known Sarah?
We became friends in middle school.
Oh my God.
Did you watch any of the trial, this trial?
Clips in passing, but no, it's 6 hours a day. So I work during the day shift now.
So
Clips
you've seen some of
in
the...
passing. Let me think about that. Clips in passing, but no. Clips in passing. She's watched some of the trial. She's watched some.
footage of the goings-on in this case, correct?
Yes, nothing with her. I did not watch her testimony.
Were you aware there was a sequestration order?
I don't know what that means, so no.
You're a sworn peace officer. You don't know what sequestration means
No.
in terms of witnesses? Not
No.
watching the proceedings in order to affect their testimony?
No, I wasn't aware.
All right. Well, fair
But you-
enough. She wasn't aware. Well, I think that's probably true. She probably wasn't aware.
You did tune in to the case, correct?
In small clips, yes.
And you did, in fact, on August 9th, 2023, have a fulsome conversation with two sworn police officers about your memory of what you saw, your observations on January 29th, 2022, correct?
I don't know if they're police officers necessarily, but yes.
Law enforcement agents, how about that?
Yes.
And that conversation is reflected in this piece of paper that I just read to you, correct?
Yes.
Thanks. That's all I have.
Okay.
All right, here we go. We've got a last one from Brennan. He gives us the big piece of information that we all ultimately need.
Were you subpoenaed by the Commonwealth in this case?
No.
You were subpoenaed by the defense.
Yes.
Did they tell you that there was a sequestration order or that you shouldn't watch any of the footage? Did they fairly inform you about what the ground rules were?
No, and I wasn't part of the first trial, so I had no idea about anything to do with this trial.
When you spoke to those law enforcement officers back in 2023, do you know that they made a report where you had informed them that you knew Sarah Levinson and that report had been provided to the defense a long time ago? Did you know
Yes,
that?
I informed them very clearly.
So the question about if you know Sarah Levinson, that's no secret in your world, is it?
In that form, I'll sustain it.
That isn't a secret, is it?
Not at all.
That's something you were open and candid about?
Yes.
You understand that regardless of what you say, it doesn't matter as long as it's the truth. Do you understand that?
Yes.
The Commonwealth in no way is asking you to accommodate it or please it in any way. Do you understand that?
Yes.
If there was something that may be perceived by others as adverse to the Commonwealth, you understand we would want you to tell that if it was the truth, don't you?
Yeah, right.
Sustained.
You understand
Of course.
the Commonwealth has never intimated, suggested, or advised you to say anything other than the truth, have they?
No.
Have you been given any consideration or reward because you remedied your memory?
No.
After being shown the evidence that you left that day, January 29, 2022, at 3:45, and learning that the defendant's car did not get to the Sallyport at 5:30 or so p.m., is there any way you could have seen Mr. Berkowitz and Mr. Higgins in the Sallyport with the defendant's car that night before you left for work?
There is no way.
So there it is. There it is again. God, she's really consistent. She really does not like to lie because, once again, she didn't directly answer that question. She danced around it. There is no way. That is not the right answer. What is the right answer, ladies and gentlemen, to that question? No. Nope. No, I did not. No, I didn't. I didn't see anything. I couldn't have. No, I couldn't have. No, I didn't.
Understanding you made a mistake, was the defense receptive to your explanation that you made a mistake?
Ridiculous.
Sustained in that form.
This is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. You listen to what Hank Brennan is saying. She made a mistake. She has a faulty memory. How is it possible? Let's think about this. Unless this woman has very serious, like traumatic brain injury kind of stuff going on, how is it possible for her to have absolutely definitively seen Berkowitz and Higgins in the Sallyport with the vehicle and then misremember it? She's hallucinating? Do we want someone who's hallucinating on the job carrying a gun? Probably not.
Did the defense pressure you when you told them you were going to come into this court and tell the truth about your mistake?
Objection.
No, allow it.
Can you rephrase it?
Yes.
Well,
When you
this is
told the defense
interesting.
you had made a mistake about your memory, did they pressure you?
Yes.
Did they pressure you to say something other than the truth?
Yes, they wanted me to repeat a lie at that point, given it would have been with malicious intent to repeat it.
Understanding a lawyer has no power to charge with contempt, does that change the reality of whether or not you were threatened? Let me ask it a different way. You were asked questions about whether or not you knew who could take out charges for a crime. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Regardless of whether an attorney has that power, were you threatened that there would be a charge of perjury if you didn't comply with the defense wishes in this case?
Yes.
And knowing you were going to come into court, given this experience you had with the defense, is that why you felt like they were going to tear you? Is that the phrase we used?
Yes, because they did not want me to tell the truth. So I told them that knowing they were kind of trying to eat me alive into repeating something that is not the truth.
Rather than to come in here and be attacked, wouldn't it have been easier just to said what you had earlier thought was true?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
Wouldn't it be easier just to come in and accommodate them rather than be threatened?
Well, of course.
So why did you come in here?
My entire job revolves around what I say on the stand right now. If I was to lie, I lose my job. I lose everything.
Okay, let's evaluate this statement very carefully, because this is the big tell. This is the biggest, most important thing she says the entire time that she is on the stand.
That is not the truth.
Rather than to come in here and be attacked, wouldn't it have been easier just to said what you had earlier thought was true?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
Wouldn't it be easier just to come in and accommodate them rather than be threatened?
Well, of course.
So why did you come in here?
My entire job revolves around what I say on the stand right now.
My entire job revolves around what I say on the stand right now. So what is she telling us? My entire job depends on what I say on the stand right now. No, dear. Her entire job depends on making sure not to throw Higgins and Berkowitz under the bus, and making sure not to make anybody, including the commissioner at the police department, look bad. Or I will not only lose my job, but I will be tortured in the process by my bosses and my coworkers.
If I was to lie, I lose my job. I lose everything. I'm here to tell the truth. I cannot lie while sitting on the stand.
So you see what she's saying? What she's really saying is, I cannot tell the truth while sitting on this stand. I cannot tell you what I really saw, because then I will lose everything. And that is the truth. That is what the fear is about, and that is why the entire testimony of Miss Devers is about obfuscating the truth, distancing herself from whatever she said, and trying to come up with any reason that she can think of to be difficult so that her bosses do not think for a moment that they have to question her loyalty, that she can't be trusted, or that she would ever throw them under the bus, because then she loses everything. And she does. And she's right. And as a younger, attractive female anyway, on an almost exclusively male-dominated and not the smartest of male-dominated careers, men who oftentimes have something to prove, are attracted to the idea of carrying around a gun and having power and authority over other human beings. I mean, she cannot afford to have these people think that she's a threat to them. And that is what this entire testimony is about. Make no mistake.
Thank you.
One question.
Okay.
Your entire job revolves around what you say on the witness stand. Is that what you just testified to?
Yes.
And if you agree that what you said to those two law enforcement agents on August 9th, 2023, you would be implicating not one, but two police officers, law enforcement officers.
Actually, three.
Correct? If you agreed with what you said in August 2023 on this witness stand, you would be implicating two officers, fellow officers, correct?
So I'm confused as to what you're asking.
You would be implicating, if you agreed with me, you have not agreed that that was the truth. You've now indicated that what you told to law enforcement agents in August of 2023 was a lie.
No.
If you agreed with that statement here on the witness stand, you would be implicating two officers as having been in the Sallyport, weirdly, for a wildly long time with the SUV, implicating not one, but two fellow officers. Correct? That's what you would be doing.
It's not possible I saw
If
that.
you agreed with
Objection.
me, would you be implicating the reputations of two officers?
If I was to lie, then yes.
And your entire job revolves around what you say on that witness stand. That's what you said, correct?
Yes.
I'm still,
That's what you just said, Officer Dever, correct?
I still don't really understand the question.
You just said, all I'm asking you is what you just said. I wrote it down. You just said, my entire job revolves around what I say on the witness stand, correct?
Yes to that
Thank
question.
you. That's all I have.
Oh, wow. Christ. Yeah, that one was tough. It was tough. She's tough. And it was tough for a number of reasons. It was tough because I completely understand what the problem is. I mean, I get it. It's very clear to me. She absolutely saw Berkowitz and Higgins in the Sallyport with Karen Reed's car. Every time I say that, I feel like I'm in the game Clue, right? Mr. Plum with the candlestick, right? In the kitchen. That is what it sounds like. That is what it was. That is what she saw. At some point, somebody gave her a way to kind of wiggle her way out of having to admit that. Who knows how or when? Maybe it was Brian Albert, for all I know. I have no idea. But she figured out that she could take it back if she misremembered or she remembered incorrectly, or if somebody over at the Canton PD gave her a different time card. So she did see what she saw, and she was threatened by the police commissioner of the Boston Police Department. So that is what the truth is. It is also true that this woman feels like her life is on the line because she's implicating 3 police officers. ATF agent Brian Higgins, Chief Berkowitz, who has since passed, but now she's implicating the chief, not the chief, the commissioner, the Boston Police Commissioner, the head of the Boston Police Department. So there it is. That is what's going on with Miss Devers. That's it. Everybody enjoy the rest of your night, day, whatever, and I will see you again soon.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything.